Hi, good morning, everybody. We'll start with the health and safety announcement. There's no fire alarm drill anticipated today, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit by following the running man signs above the doors and make your way to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting will tell you when it's safe to return. Toilets are available in the stairwell of the building at each floor landing, and water is available from the water cooler in reception. And finally, please make sure all phones are either muted or switched off. Speaking of which, right, good morning. I am your chair, Councillor Ollie Davey, and welcome to this Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday, the 23rd of September, 2025. Sitting to my right is the Vice Chair, Councillor Eileen Wragg, and the supporting officers present today are Wendy Ormsby, Development Manager, Damien Hunter, Planning Solicitor, and Amanda Coombs, Democratic Services Officer. And the presenting officers for today's applications will be Wendy Ormsby, Emerald Maguire Phoebe, Liam Fisher, Ben Chesters, and Thea Billiter. Morning, Thea, thanks for coming. The meeting today is being streamed live to the Council's YouTube account, so can I remind all members and officers contributing to the meeting to use a microphone or your comments will not be heard. It says, please, can all phones be muted again? We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members and declarations of interest. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. Starting with yourself, Councillor Davey.
I am present, I think, and I have no interests to declare.
Thank you, Councillor Wragg.
Present, no interest.
Councillor Bailey.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Present, thank you, and I've no declarations that I'm aware of.
Councillor Bloxham.
Present, thank you, and lobbied for agenda item 8. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Collins.
Present, thank you, and only lobbying in relation to agenda item 8. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Faithful. No. Councillor Haggerty. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, present, no declarations.
And Councillor Smith. Okay, back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of councillors did mention lobbying on item 8. We have had a briefing note. I don't know if that counts as lobbying, but yes, we have had some further information on that one. Okay, thank you. So the next item is registered speakers. You can find the speakers for today's applications on pages 4 and 5 of the agenda. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meetings, meeting I think it is, pages 6 to 9 in the agenda. Is it members' wish that as chair I sign the minutes of the meetings held on 19th August 2025 as a true and accurate record?
Yeah, agreed.
All in favour, please? Right. Actually, I wasn't here, so I shall abstain. Okay, and agenda item 3, apologies, Amanda.
Yes, I have 4 apologies, Chair. Councillor Gazzard, Councillor Levine, Councillor Howe and Councillor Chapman.
All right, thank you.
Oh, and as Councillor Smith's just arrived, I'll just ask him if he has any declarations, please. For item 8. Thank you.
Chair, if I can, Councillor Haggerty said that he'd sent his apologies.
Okay, so apologies from Councillor Haggerty as well, yep. Okay, Declarations of interest, we've done. Matters of urgency, there are none. Agenda item 6, to agree any items to be dealt with after the public have been excluded, there are none of those. And agenda item 7, planning appeal statistics. There's quite a lot about planning appeals, pages 10 to 30 on your agenda. And we'll have an update from Mrs. Ormsby, Development Manager.
Good morning. So looking through the appeals list that you've got there, the ones appeal decisions of note, there's one which we actually already discussed last committee, which was 232612 OUT land at Lower Broad Oak Road in West Hill, where the inspector allowed an appeal for 5 dwellings, giving significant weight to the council's 5-year housing land supply situation, notwithstanding the fact that he identified there was going to be some landscape harm, loss of a identified local view, and that the site did not have continuous safe pedestrian routes into the local village centre. As I said, the inspector there giving quite significant weight to the housing land supply situation. Another one is probably just worth mentioning because I know it's something that we do consider quite often, which is housing in the countryside, which is 241938 FUL, Halls Farm, Metcombe, Ottery, where the inspector, that was a proposal to convert an agricultural building into 2 dwellings. And that appeal was dismissed with the inspector giving significant weight to the lack of accessibility by means of travel other than the car, and the general countryside protection and strategic approach to location of new housing development. So that was upholding the council's policies in regard to location of development. And then I think the other one of particular note, well, there's one there members may remember, which is 240371 FUL, Bridgend, Hertford, and that was removal of a residential caravan and conversion of a building to a dwelling. That was one that was recommended for refusal by officers and refused at committee. But there was some debate about that when it came here. Ultimately, the inspector took the view that the caravan, notwithstanding the fact that it hasn't been occupied for quite some time, is a more vulnerable form of accommodation in a flood zone. This site was in flood zone 3 than a sort of a structurally built dwelling would be. So this appeal was allowed on that basis, that it wouldn't be increasing the number of dwellings on the site, and that the conversion of the barn would be a safer form of accommodation in a flood zone situation. And then lastly on that list is 220508 MFUL, land at Pound Farm, Hawkchurch, and this was a non-determination appeal. The appeal was dismissed, and the council had resolved that it would have refused the application on the grounds of the inability to demonstrate that there would not be contamination of the environment in times of fire through the fact that they hadn't demonstrated that they could properly contain any contaminated fire waters, which has been a recurrent theme for all BES applications in that particular area where the local houses rely on aquifers. The inspector gave quite significant weight to that fact. And the inspector also acknowledged landscape harm and the fact that there'd been adequate mitigation of potential effects on dormice as a protected species. So that appeal was dismissed on those grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Any questions on those? Actually, and I've got one first and then I'll come to you. The Hertford caravan one, did the inspector not take into account the fact that a caravan is a temporary dwelling? Would it not be considered a temporary dwelling, and that it could therefore be moved to a safer location? I don't know, it seems a little perverse to say that you can have a caravan in a flood zone and therefore it's okay to replace it with a house. Was that a consideration?
So in this case, the caravan had a certificate of lawfulness to demonstrate that it could be, it was lawful, it could lawfully be used as residential accommodation, whereas most caravans just sort of sited in an ad hoc manner and land don't necessarily have that authorised use. So yes, the inspector didn't mention about the fact that the caravan could be moved elsewhere, which, as I know, was part of our reasoning when we were considering whether or not there was, justification for allowing a permanent full, dwelling in flood zone 3B. So, the most at-risk flood zone that there is. So, yes, the inspectors don't always have the same approach as we may do.
Okay, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder, Wendy, how are we doing on our averages? Are we still happy that we're not going to get told off by the inspectorate? Are our averages still good?
I haven't actually seen the statistics of late, but in terms of just generally, it seems to me that we are, I'm not concerned in terms of the numbers of applications allowed versus those dismissed. Still, the vast majority of appeals are dismissed, but I can have an interim update on the percentages for next committee if you would like.
No, as long as you're happy, that's all that matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is it we aim for? Around 75, is it?
Yes, I think the key things we need to look at cautiously is majors, because if you have because obviously majors, there's much fewer of them, so it's very easy for percentages to skew. And if you have a disproportionate number of majors that are allowed where they've been refused, then that can be grounds to look at special measures. But generally, with them, I'm quite comfortable in terms of our results on majors at the moment. But yes, I think it is about 70% is the figure of concern if you drop below in terms of appeals overturned.
And if I can, Chair, no, it doesn't matter. No, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, that's fine. We'll get a figure next meeting and just check that we're all on track. But yes, from a quick glance, it looks as though we're pretty much on track, not to have too many going against our own decisions. Okay, that moves us to agenda item 8 then. So we have 2 planning applications here. 22-2306 MRES and 22-2354 MFUL, both majors, and this is in Cranbrook, and that's pages 31 to 168 in the agenda pack. Okay, over to Ben, who's doing the report, and Thea is also here to assist with that. Over to you guys.
Okie doke. Yeah, as mentioned, this is for 2 applications, this particular report, but on, as you can see here, essentially the same site. So I've just got outlined there that's the application site here in red. The 2 of them are combined. We'll see that on the next slide. But just for context in terms of where you are in Cranbrook, in blue there is approximately where the Morrison store is, and you've got the education centre to the north of it. So it's well inside the built-up area boundary of Cranbrook, as shown in the Cranbrook plan. So you can see there where the 2 applications combine to make sort of essentially one development area, if you like. The reserved matters application's in red. The full application is in blue there. The reason that there are two applications is because the housing numbers in the full would be over and above those that were allowed in the outline consent originally for Cranbrook back in the day. So it's necessary to put in a full application for those. And just for clarity, the yellow area that's highlighted there, that's indicative development that, in fact, this committee has already granted a resolution to approve, but there's nothing there at the moment. That's just indicative on the plans there. So, there's nothing there at the current time. This one here just shows the various areas in the town centre with this particular pair of applications. We're looking at TCs 5A and B, also TC6 and TC7A. And again, the superstore, just for context, is over here in TC4A. So we're right in the centre of Cranbrook there. In terms of how the site appears, this is the looking sort of north onto TC6. That's the education centre there. There's a high pressure gas pipeline that runs along here and then up there, but we'll return to that a little bit later. But it is a point that's worth being aware of. In fact, there's a post relating to the gas pipeline as we look to the west across three of the areas that relate to this application, with the main road through Cranbrook on the left-hand side of the picture there. We're down the other end of the development now, looking back up. The education centre is just over here, and we're looking west. And you can also see the TC7 part of the development in here. And now this is Cranford Lane leading down towards the level crossing, just down here. There's the education centre there, so we're looking sort of northwest-ish at that point. And there's more of a view of the rest of the site down towards the level crossing. You can see the signage for the level crossing, probably about there somewhere. And this is the pedestrian access into the education centre. And the vehicular one is where those cars are there. So this is looking across TCs 7A and B. So where the earth mound is there, that's where the indicative development was shown on the plan a short time ago. So you can see there's nothing really there at the moment. I think it's now more of a compound than what's shown on that picture. But either way, what there isn't is the development that was shown on that plan just there. So in terms of what's proposed on the site, section AA here, which is this one here, that's along Cranford Lane. So you can see at this end on the edge of the developed area nearest to the level crossing, we're talking about the potential for smaller houses, raising to larger houses and 3-storey properties when you get closer to the main road there, which is very typical of the development we have along the main road through Cranbrook anyway. And that's planned to continue further along here on BB, which is that's along Tillhouse Road there. So again, you can see 3-storey properties, very typical of what is on that part of on the main road through Cranbrook. This is looking around TC7A bit there, section CC. Again, it's the 3-storey properties, but in contrast here on DD, which is within the TC6 area, you've got a line of smaller properties here. These ones are actually the flats above garages that are proposed in the centre of that particular development there. So these next few slides are just an indication of the types of properties that are proposed in this development here. So you can see we've got some fairly small, modest properties here, ranging through to some larger properties. And then on the next page, you see there's the 3-storey ones as well. Some of these are actually apartments rather than just single properties that are 3 stories high. And again, here's a combination of 2- and 3-storey properties. So in terms of the materials, there's a whole range of different materials that are proposed to be used. Bricks of 3 colours, brown, red and grey, sorry, that's the roof materials rather. And the bricks of red, yellow, black, some white render as well. This also shows the boundary treatments. We've got railings along the front, along the main road there, along the frontage of the mall. And it's more walls and fences sort of inside the development, if you like. You'll also notice from this particular plan that it's quite a dense area of development that's proposed. The density comes out at 61 units DPH, so that's above with the policy requirement for this area. So this is just this is the railings that previously mentioned. So that's what will be along the main route is the site boundary, or the property boundaries rather. And then there's your fairly typical sort of the brick walls and the standard fencing. So the landscaping, there would also be some planting behind the railings that previously mentioned. Our landscape architect has raised some concerns though about the landscaping as it's currently shown. So it's proposed that if these applications are approved, to impose a condition to seek further clarifications and details about the landscaping. The public open space that's shown here is included in the red line, primarily because there is also going to be some attenuation underneath there, but also partly for landscaping purposes. But the actual play equipment that may well eventually be delivered on there will be dealt with through an existing 106 legal agreement by the Town Council. So that's why there's not a huge amount of detail on that area there, and the public open space per se isn't being delivered through this application, but it will be delivered through another mechanism. Car parking, you can see there's a range of car parking spots there. The number of spaces actually does fall below that required by the policy, but it's our view that that's actually acceptable given the sustainable location of the site, close to the town centre, close to the education centre, close to public transport links, frequent buses, for example. So we're of the view that that's acceptable. And lastly, there are 7 affordable units proposed on this development, as shown in blue on the plan here. And I think it's now here's a little section.
Thank you very much, Ben. Yes, so members, you may recall, and as Ben mentioned earlier, back in July, you had another planning application before you on parcel TC7B. Now that relates to the same issue, if you like, as the ones that are presented both here in these 2 applications that Ben has just described to you, and also in the next application, which Liam will present to you. And that is that this all relates back to a memorandum of understanding that we as an authority signed with the East Devon New Community Partners, who are the consortium who have delivered Cranbrook to date, back in May 2022. Now that sought to balance the needs of the community in terms of the town centre facilities that will be provided and the existing and the Section 106 obligations related to that, together with the need to get some denser housing in the town centre and the needs of the developers to turn an appropriate profit overall as part of the initial sort of roughly 3,500 homes. So that resulted in the Memorandum of Understanding securing the financial contributions that are shown on the screen here. So relating to habitat mitigation, additional monies towards primary school places, sustainable travel measures, car sharing and e-bikes, and affordable housing. Now, crucially, in relation to affordable housing, the number of homes to be delivered across the application, so those are the applications covering parcels TC3, TC5A, TC6, 7A and B, and 8B. They've already dealt with 7B back in July. That results in there only being 17 affordable dwellings across those sites, which is below policy compliance. But for the reasons set out in the report, and also going back in an awful lot more detail to the reasons set out in various committee reports to Strategic Planning Committee and Cabinet back in, well, it goes back to 2020, officers were of the view that this was an acceptable position to be in order to secure the necessary land and facilities for the town centre. So that memorandum of understanding resulted in the council making a commercial purchase of parcels TC4D and E, shown on your screen, and also results in us being offered to transfer the whole of parcel TC2, which is land in excess of the land that we would have otherwise been, the consortium would otherwise obligated to transfer to us. It is also now, as a result of some further discussions, and this is in your report, what was previously an obligation for the consortium to deliver a very modest building to the town council, only 237 square metres, that is proposed to be commuted into a financial contribution of £592,500 to be indexed from May 2022. And is a position which I believe, and I'm looking at Councillor Bloxham's also with a town council hat on, a position that town council are now accepting of. Yes, thank you, she's nodded. So that is where we are. That is the rationale as to why the obligations and the overall Section 106 package doesn't meet the requirements of the Cranbrook plan. But as I say, it was a very lengthy and protracted discussion related to the overall delivery of the town centre. And our view was that it is secures the best we can for Cranbrook as a whole once we expand out to 8,000 homes, gives us the land and facilities and opportunities necessary to deliver the services required. I'll hand back to Ben.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Thea. So actually, some of this last slide's just been covered, really. So yes, there is the memorandum of understanding in place, which deals with the funding and various obligations that I've got on the top of that list there. I've also mentioned the open space. The proposal doesn't actually meet the 10% biodiversity net gain, but as mentioned, the MOU actually prevents us from asking for any further requirements, so we can't be requesting further units to be purchased in this instance, unfortunately. But also the applications were submitted before B&G was a legal requirement, although of course it does come up in the Cranbrook plan as well. Proposal has been considered to be acceptable in terms of drainage and flooding. The high pressure gas pipeline that was earlier mentioned when we were looking at the photos, that was rerouted and strengthened much earlier in the Cranbrook development, and the HSE, Health and Safety Executive, that is, has confirmed to us that they're happy with the proposed housing being where it is in relation to the gas pipeline because of the strengthening that was done to the pipeline. The proposed housing would contribute towards the council's 5-year land supply, and we feel on balance, therefore, the proposal is acceptable. So the recommendations are for the Preserved Matters application to adopt the appropriate assessment, which Natural England has agreed to, and to approve the application subject to conditions and a legal agreement with conditions covering the matters listed there. And for the full application, it's a very similar recommendation, really. Again, to adopt the appropriate assessment, and again to approve subject to legal agreement and conditions relating to those matters there. However, it has come to our attention that in error there was a condition, it's number 11 on the reserved matters and number 13 on the full relating to connection to the district heating network, which doesn't need to be there because that can be dealt with through the legal process now. So therefore, recommend that that condition is not carried forward. Yes, those two conditions, 11 on the MRES and 13 on the full, are not carried forward. That's all there is to say at the moment, I think.
Okay, thank you both. Right, we'll now hear from Joshua Stevenson from Persimmon Southwest.
Good morning, members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about our two applications at Cranbrook Town Centre. The two applications under consideration are the full application for 61 homes and a further reserve matters for 31 homes. These applications sit on the entirety of parcels 5A, 5B, 6 and 7A at Cranbrook Town Centre. The applications before you were both submitted in 2023, the RM by East Devon New Community Partners and the full application by Persimmon Homes, and have both been subject to numerous changes requested by East Devon's officers. The schemes before you today is the culmination of those efforts and has delivered a contemporary design which will have a distinct character as required by policy CB22, mirroring TC7B. The density of the entire scheme as a whole is 61 dwellings per hectare, which is above policy CB22. The detailed breakdown is 5A is 52 dph, 5B is 60 dph, 6 62 dph, and 7A 71 dph. On parking, this has been an ongoing discussion with East Devon District Council. The amount of parking providers has been approved by East Devon, who have been seeking for us to deliver less allocated parking in this town centre location. The site will feature EV chargers on all plots, ecological improvements including bat boxes, bird boxes, bee bricks and hedgehog holes in line with our Homes for Nature commitment. Our site will be contributing to East Devon's housing shortfall in housing land supply by delivering a mixture of homes from 1-bed maisonettes to 3-bed detached homes. As part of the Reserve Matters schemes, 28.65% of the properties will be transferred to a local housing association partner, helping to address housing need in the area. The scheme in front of you for 92 family homes runs forward from a very helpful and positive dialogue with officers over the last 24 months. It includes East Devon, Natural England, the Lead Local Flood Authority, EA and Devon County Council. This extensive process has done much to shape and refine the proposals, and I'd like to thank all of the officers for all their hard work to get this application in front of you today. In the context of compelling housing need, the positive dialogue between all parties extending over 24 months, I hope that you follow your officer's recommendation to approve. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming in under time. Okay, yes, as Joshua said there's been a lot of dialogue between officers and members, as I'm sure you will have, officers and the developers, in order to get to the point we're at today. Peter, did I see your hand up? The first thing we need to say is welcome. I'm no doubt it was the bus service that is to blame. And do you have any declarations?
Only, I believe I've received lobbying by, I assume everybody else got. No, that's, yeah, basically that's what
Item
I wanted to say.
yeah, that's as we all have.
Chair, you can't take part in the discussion.
No,
Anyway,
yeah, because you haven't heard the whole presentation, Peter, obviously you can't take part in this part of the meeting.
There's something I would want to say that has never been mentioned anywhere in any of the documents, is provision for bus. That's all right then, I will do that, thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with questions. Yeah, Ian?
Thank you. Couple of things. First of all, should we pass this, as I always say, the water butts. If we were to put 110 litre water butt per bedroom, that's 22,000 litres I've worked out about on average, which again, it's not a huge amount, but again, if we are looking at flooding, I know there was flooding issues that they say they've now overcome with various things. It just helps, and I just don't understand why you don't just put it in and make them put it in to begin with. But anyway, I will keep saying that every single time. Also, the electric charging points, a little bit concerned because there isn't enough parking. Is every house having an electric charging point? Are the electric chargers going to be actually run off people's personal electric supplies, or are they going to be these very expensive chargers that make electric charging very expensive, and like the ones down in the car parks, etc., which then basically mean that it's not cheap to run an electric car, and that's all I've got at the moment.
Okay, do you want to deal with that one first, Ben, or shall I ask Brian to ask his question and take them together? Take them one at a time,
Yeah,
that's fine.
the EV charging issue that you raised there, that's now part of building regs rather than planning. So it's something that's dealt with through the building regulations, rather than something that we would necessarily tackle head-on with the planning these days.
So can we ask the applicant then, please, because he was the one who mentioned that they were having electric charging points.
Yep. Do you mind, Joshua? Yeah, just coming back in. Yeah, please.
Yep, so every plot will be connected to a 7.3 kilowatt EV charging point. That will be connected to the main supply on that house, so it won't be a public EV charging point. It's under Part S of building regs. We're obligated to do it. All house builders are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Brian.
Two questions. The first one may seem relatively minor, but I think it's not. The railings that were mentioned, we saw on the screen just now, don't seem to have a capping on them, where they've got spikes sticking up. Well, we all know what young children are like. We're over the fence and end up being spiked. So I think it should need a rod across the top so that young children, if and when they climb over it, don't get spiked on the railings. Because I think that's essential, because it's very easy to seriously injure a child.
Okay, we'll ask that question, Brian. And you had another one?
I have another one. I don't think 17% affordable homes is sufficient on a site this size.
Well, it's stated in the report that it's not compliant with the Cranbrook plan, but I think it is consistent with the MOU. Thea can probably, yeah. So the MOU basically overrode certain aspects of the Cranbrook plan in order to get that agreement between the council and the developers, or councils actually, because Devon County was.
Is it possible to put an amendment to get those railings with a bar across the top?
We'll certainly ask about that. It's possible the final design hasn't actually been approved yet, but
thank you.
Ben can answer that.
Okay, in relation to the railings, it's perhaps not wonderfully clear on the picture, but they are ball top. They're not spiked at the top. They're ball toppers, the same as the other railings that we have throughout the town. I don't. Oh, there you go. There you go. They're ball top. There you go.
Okay, that was good.
Okay, and then in relation to the affordable housing, it was, I can't stress heavily enough how difficult the negotiations were with the consortium over the town centre provisions as a whole. Nil affordable housing on the additional housing isn't what we all ideally wanted. But it was, after much debate, considered to be part of the wider package that, as officers, we recommended to Cabinet that they agreed with. Now, I have to also be clear that that isn't a planning legal agreement. It's a memorandum of understanding that in the committee report it is set out that officers consider it to be a material consideration. So we acknowledge that there is a conflict with planning policy, but when taken in the round with the other benefits that arise as a result of granting these schemes, that we consider it to be acceptable. It also doesn't necessarily mean, and this isn't guaranteed of course, doesn't necessarily mean that there couldn't then be some additionality delivered as affordable housing by perhaps Persimmon going and doing a deal with one of the registered providers of affordable housing. That is what we've seen elsewhere in the town. It's, like I say, it's not guaranteed to happen, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you only get 17 affordable houses across those parcels. For example, the 26, I think it is, units that are above the existing high street shops, I think there's 17 at the minute actually that have been delivered, we changed the Section 106 agreement. They have nil affordable housing by planning agreement, but they are actually 100% affordable, were delivered by Live West using grant funding. So there are other ways to deliver affordable housing outside the planning system that sometimes does occur. But like I say, what you are considering is the 17 units across the whole parcel. So for these two applications, 7 affordable homes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Peter, Councillor Faithful, you had a question?
Thank you, Chair. What is the situation about parking of school buses? Because I believe, I'm not sure it was school, but I assume it was, they were parked up opposite the school on the south side of, whatever, is it Tillhouse Road, the one that goes from the school to the east? I don't know if Councillor Bloxham might be able to clarify, but when you're coming in from this side of the town, you come along to the school and you've got a hard left-hand bend. The whole of that corner is going to be built out, so you won't be able to see across that corner. It's causing major obstruction, so it's normal to have somewhere for buses, school buses, to park up while they're waiting. And as far as I was aware, I assume it was school buses that were parked up. There's a row of them on the side of the road, and I think that will cause a bit of a major highway issue there.
One of you.
Those buses, so let me go back. The Cranbrook Education Campus has a catchment that only covers Cranbrook. They don't have any school buses that serve the school, to the best of my understanding. The school buses that you would have seen are either, I guess, potentially ones that might be taking kids out on trips, but the school do have other provisions that they can drive into their own car park and turn around outside of morning and afternoon peaks, but the school buses that I have seen previously on Tillhouse Road there are going to, they're picking children up and dropping them off from Clist Vale School, is my understanding. So there are, however, due to be, I don't know if it's shown any of your plans, Ben, there's some uplift works that we have previously approved to Tillhouse Road that are yet to be implemented, and they will deliver additional formal crossing points on Tillhouse Road and also on the junction in Cranford Lane near the junction. And so there will then be the zigzag lining coming away from each of those, which would mean that the buses would need to park further back down the road, so away from that, that existing bend in Tillhouse Road. They're not shown on those plans, I don't think. No.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Peter? Okay. Councillor Barlow.
Just one other thing about parking. Whenever I've been to Cranbrook, parking seems to be a problem everywhere. And you're now putting in extra houses without as much parking as you even prefer to have. Is it realistic that people aren't going to have a car? I know everyone says, oh, we're going to travel by bus, but as Peter's shown us, they're not always reliable. At the right times, etc., and there's not enough of them. I just wonder if you are being realistic or we're just pushing this through for various reasons to get it done.
Could you, just tell us what the ratio of parking actually is?
I'd have to look to Ben to what the ratio of parking is. So the Cranbrook plan talks about 1.7 parking spaces per dwelling, with 30% of those spaces at least to be unallocated spaces adjacent to adoptable roads. Statistically, yes, there's lots of car parking on roads at Cranbrook, but if you go and look, there are also an awful lot of car parking spaces which don't have vehicles in them. Statistically, the census in 2021 showed that 6.4% of households had no cars or vans. 44.4% had one car or van, which means that more than half of the households had 0 or 1 cars to them. Then another 42% have 2 cars or vans, with 7.1% having 3 or more. So there's plenty, 1.7 spaces, actually in terms of proportion-wise, is absolutely fine to accommodate what we know is the car ownership level. The issue is about them all being historically or all allocated spaces, with very few unallocated spaces, which means that you're not dealing with the uneven distribution of car ownership, which is why through the Cranbrook plan we introduced the policy of having a reasonable portion of spaces to be unallocated adjacent to adopted roads to help you deal with that situation.
Okay, thank you very much for that very full answer, Thea.
Give you the details of numbers if you're interested.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so the numbers of parking were, essentially it's short by 14 spaces. But in amongst those spaces, there's unallocated parking spaces as well, which therefore are much more flexible than the allocated ones. And yes, 142 spaces in total. Sorry, I'm reading from the report here at the same time. 142 spaces in total. 30 of them are unallocated, 112 are allocated to dwellings. But there's also 25 garages which don't count in the parking numbers. But we are proposing a condition that is to keep them for the use of parking of vehicles, so that people can't change them to an extension to their house, for example.
And sorry, on that parking issue, the garages underneath the flats, I noticed there's 3 garages for one flat. Also, it's one flat above it with 3 garages underneath it. I presume that the flat doesn't own all 3 garages. So is there going to be issues with noise then from people? I mean, not many people park their cars in actual garages. They use them for hobbies or whatever, or anything.
So flats above garages are seen all over the place. The developers are well versed in how to build them with adequate noise separation between the ground and first floor uses. Equally, they would pass them over, and I'm looking at Josh, with covenants to, yes, nodding, yes, with covenants to ensure there would be no bad neighbour uses. So I expect they probably can't do things like operate heavy plant machinery and things like that. There you go, shaking his head, yeah. So it would be up to the homeowner of the flat to enforce that.
I can actually vouch that is the case, because my garage is underneath the flat next door to me at home. So that is the case, yeah.
Okay.
Kim.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Bloxham, Kim.
If I can just help on the parking, as I live and experience the parking in Cranbrook regularly, the garages underneath the flats are probably the ones that are most used for cars. They are the ones that do get parked in. A couple of years ago, I did drive around Cranbrook one evening when all the cars were on the roads, and I counted 1,000 parking spaces that were not being used by the owners of those parking spaces. So whilst I think you never got enough parking, and I've had many conversations with Thea over the parking in the town centre, I do get the point that people don't always use their parking spaces. They don't use their garages all the time for parking, but the ones over flats are the ones that are using them, if that helps.
Okay, any further questions? Simon, Councillor Smith.
It might be a question aimed at Kim again, for living in the area, really. In terms of the housing that's been built, I noticed white render, having lived on a new build estate and seen it age over the last 10 years. What's the ageing like of white render houses in the Cranbrook area?
Councillor Bloxham can answer that one. Do you live in a white house, or was
I live
once
in a pink
white?
house that I live in a pink house. It's a Taylor Wimpey house. I have just had my render cleaned after 13 years, and it was not as bad as some of the white ones, and it does probably depend on which developer. I wouldn't say the 2 that are here today are the worst. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on before we stray into litigation territory. Okay, any further questions, or shall we move into debate? Okay, we'll go into debate. Who's going to kick us off, Ian?
Yeah, look, obviously, we are straying from our local plan. We don't like doing that. I noticed the thing that this is not to be seen as what is it? I've got it written down here somewhere. Not to be seen as to set any sort of precedent. I think there are many reasons for allowing this. It's been clearly written out what the reasons are, and when you're ready, Chair, I'm very happy to recommend approval as per the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Just to make clear, it's not the local plan, it's actually the Cranbrook plan, because Cranbrook has its own
That is the
plan.
local plan for Cranbrook.
For Cranbrook, yes.
And obviously
it-
supersedes our plan, I realise
yeah.
that. However, that's a more modern plan than our plan, so
is.
therefore we really shouldn't be going against that, however we are.
Right. No, you're quite right. But yes, it does go against the Cranbrook plan, but as Thea said, the memorandum of understanding was worked out after extensive negotiations. And if you've looked at the number of strategic planning meetings we had and negotiating meetings and cabinet meetings and council meetings, we'll remember, some of us, that it took quite some considerable time to get to that point.
Before my time, Chair, obviously, but I would like to just stress that, you know, I do hope that the conditions that are put down for land to be transferred and things like that does happen within the 7-day time limits, etc. Because, you know, these are important things, and some of the reasons that we are looking at this as it is.
Yep. Yeah, well, that'll be a 106 agreement, I assume. Yeah, Thea, thank you.
Yeah, so in relation to the transfer of TC2, it was included in the MOU, and we have actually been doing an awful lot of work with the consortium to finalise the transfer. So we're quite a way down the line, but obviously we didn't have a formal legal mechanism for them to offer the transfer to us. So that's why the Section 106 then needs to set a date for the offer to transfer to be made, but we've been working on it for ages with them. So the offer to transfer needs to be made, the existing Section 106 provisions then set a timescale for that to be executed and the transfer to be completed. So we are all confident that everything is moving on and will be done within the time frame.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Bloxham.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for that, Thea, because you knew that I would raise that. So you got in ahead of me. That's crucial that we do have that Section 106 agreement resolved should these applications be approved today and in a time frame that is not how long is a piece of string. We need to actually get that completed. But you and I know we've had many conversations about that. There's been some positive movement in the report about the town council building, so I'm pleased to see that. The parking, I'm pleased to see that condition 28 is in there because, as Councillor Faithful said, there is quite a lot of traffic around the education campus, and the members, district councillors, county councillors, town council, officers have all worked together to try and come up with ways that we can try and alleviate those issues around the town centre and the education campus. So to see condition 28 is good. But Ben, you did mention that because the conditions in there that they will have to conform to that, with garages being kept as garages. But I also know that recently we had a condition to keep a garage as a garage and somebody made it into a different building and that was allowed to go through. So if we do have conditions, we really should be trying to stick to them. Public open space, we've got some elements of drainage are managed by the town council and the public open space. And I know the town council have been discussing right up until July with the developer on this one to get some clarity about adoption and about what is actually going to the town council and who's adopting. And we would prefer to have seen that landscaping plan ahead, as we've seen in other applications, but that's not to be. But in future, we really could do with having those things signed off before we get to this stage. But having said that, nothing's perfect. It's there's been a lot of work, and if there is a proposal, I'm happy to second it. Okay.
Thank you. So we have a proposer and a seconder. Any further speakers on this one? No? Okay. In that case, we'll go over to Damien to just remind you, because we do have approval with conditions, and there are two conditions we're removing, 11 and 13.
Yeah, you've got to take the two applications separately. So remove condition 11
on the first one.
So yeah, and 13 on the floor, and
then add a condition to both of them about water conservation strategy.
So we're removing condition 11 on 222306 and adding a condition 13. No, removing condition 13 from 222354. Okay, and there's also an appropriate assessment.
And also the additional condition about water conservation strategy to include the use of water butts where
Yep.
feasible.
Okay, and also conservation, water conservation. Is that what you were?
That was, Chair, what I was going to say.
Yep.
So I'm going to add that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just have a special condition called Ian's bee in his bonnet, I think. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you're talking to a man who has 6 water butts, no, 4 round his house, and about 5 on his allotment. Okay, so right. So Damien, do you just want to clarify all that? We'll take them one at a time, won't we?
Thank you, Chair. So my understanding is that it's to adopt the appropriate assessment as set out in Appendix 1, approve the application 222306 MRES subject to Section 106 legal agreement related to the affordable housing and subject to the conditions. Final wording to be delegated to the development manager, and on that particular application to remove condition 11. And then approve application 222354 M full, subject to Section 106 legal agreement and conditions. Again, final wording to be delegated to development manager, and on that occasion, removing condition 13 from the application. On that basis, Chair, we'll take everybody to the...
Yes, and adding in a condition to do with water butts and water conservation.
And that is in relation to 2354, is it?
Both of them, I think.
Both.
Is it?
So plus
both.
Condition the water butts. Is that the standard one that we tend to use?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, members, on...
106 is about just affordable housing. Damien said the Section 106 was to secure affordable housing. It's for a lot more than that.
Yeah, okay. Just to clarify, the Section 106 agreement will cover much more than just the affordable housing requirement. There will be other elements to that as well. Okay.
Yes, Chair. So I'm just reading from the recommendations. Yeah, yeah, you are correct. Obviously, it will cover various sets of terms as set out within the agreement.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm getting various
Now, I tend to
voices
say
in the
this.
left ear.
Are we ready, members, to go for the vote?
Okay. So just to remind you, Peter, you don't get to vote on this one, but the next one you will be able to.
I think the easiest thing to do, Chair, is to take all 3 of them separately. So first of all,
Yep.
we have a vote in relation to adopting the appropriate assessment, please. All
Okay.
those in favour? So that's unanimous.
Okay.
And then secondly, to approve application 222306 MRES, as stipulated previously. All those in favour? And again, that's unanimous, Chair. And then lastly, to approve application 222354 M full, again, as stipulated earlier. All those in favour? And again, that's unanimous, Chair.
We've got one more appropriate assessment because we need one for each of those developments. Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realise that we had two
No,
separate-
I didn't either. I was about to ask, does the appropriate assessment cover both developments? But
Okay. Let's have another vote then, everybody. Now for the second appropriate assessment. Are you all happy with it? Let's hope so now. And that's unanimous, Chair. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll try and make it simpler on the next one. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can we please go back to agenda item 2, because I have something I want to say there.
Agenda item, was that the minutes? It was. Okay, Peter. Yes.
They've already
Thank
been
you,
agreed
Amy.
and signed off.
They have been agreed and signed off. So what was your...
Well, my question is in relation to the Broadcliff battery storage unit. where do we stand when we find that information given is false or wrong? What is the legal situation, i.e., is the application invalid? I mean, the chair wasn't at the meeting, so, but, you know, the calculations for the size of the tank were wrong. And so how does that... I mean, this is just one case, but how much do we have to check all the rest of the calculations?
Okay.
If the member's got a complaint, better off raising it with the monitoring officer at this stage.
Yeah, yeah. So
They've
legal,
been approved, haven't they? So
the legal advice is to raise that with the monitoring officer.
It's not, I mean, it was dealt with outside of the meeting afterwards, because I emailed to Wendy, and Wendy, all the committee at the meeting were included in the emails, so they do know what it was all about. What I'm asking is the situation that when we find ourselves in that situation, where do we stand? I mean, it's not so much specific to this one, but it is the actual legal situation. I don't know if Mr. Hunter can clarify.
So my understanding is that what you're saying is if you think that something during the meeting hasn't been dealt with properly, when the vote's been taken, I'm not quite following you.
I assume I didn't include Mr. Hunter in the emails.
No.
So what it was, the storage tank, the figures they'd given of 250 were completely wrong. It was only 150,000 litres. So the whole, I mean, this is a pretty, fire safety is pretty important stuff. And I challenged them at the meeting, and they came back and insisted their figures were correct. And I presented a whole series of calculations in emails to the whole Council committee, and Wendy was included in there, and Wendy did reply, and I can't, perhaps Wendy could clarify exactly how she dealt with it, but she presented it again. But it's the fact that we've gone through, we've agreed all of the documents, everything, we'd agreed it, and then afterwards, there we have, these figures are completely wrong. I mean, fire safety is pretty blooming important when you get things like Grenfell Tower and all stuff like that. So, I mean, that is the legal situation. Where do we stand when we find that when we've agreed something and then we find after the meeting, we've found that what we've got is wrong?
Well, I suppose in that situation, you'd look to see whether or not the ultimate decision that was taken by the committee was flawed in any way, because perhaps they were presented with incorrect information. If that was the case, potentially, if it was yourself, a member of the public, whoever it may be, could look potentially to challenges by way of judicial review to say that the way that this application has been dealt with is incorrect. At that stage then, if it was gleaned... Sorry, we're having two conversations there.
Okay, no, sorry, Ian, I'm not going to enter into a great debate on this. I think Mr. Hunter's already made it clear.
Can I just finish, Chair?
Sorry, Damien, I didn't realise you hadn't.
What I was saying is if there was some concern that the decision was flawed, then potentially somebody could take this authority to a judicial review. What they would then have to do is present us with the letter before action stating in what way they believe that the decision was flawed. And then if it turns out that the figures were material in making this decision and there was a flaw, then what we would look to do is we would look to remit it back to the committee to retake that decision. If it turns out that it wasn't fundamental in making the decision agreeable in the first place, then there'd be no further action to take unless you chose to judicially review us and we defended at that stage. So I think that's the wider implications. If someone isn't happy with how a decision is taken and believes it's been based on flawed information, then it can be challenged by way of judicial review. But we would defend that if we believed that that was an incorrect assertion being put towards us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, Just to clarify a point on this, that Peter was very right in what he brought up, the dimensions. However, the legal thing was to the fire officer who has to issue the safety note on there, and there has to be a fire certificate safety for it of 254,000 litres. So at that point, it's the fire officer really that needs to be sure that there is 254,000 litres there. And you're right, the information was given correct, but they issued an apology. So at the end of the day, I think it was an honest mistake just on the height of the tank. However, Peter is right that it was wrong, and he was right to point it out, and no one at the time believed him because, of course, the person putting the plan forward said, no, it is right. And my pi r squared, whatever it is, to work it out wasn't quite quick enough to say yes or no to back Peter up. But it was right. But the actual literage that we passed was the correct amount of litres that was required. And as I said, the fire officer has to issue, and he's the one that is ultimately responsible for the amount of water on site. So, you know, it would have been pushed back to them.
Okay, thank you. I think we can close that one now. Thank you, Peter, for raising that. And I suggest we take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 11:15, and then we'll deal with the next application.
last week, so.
Okay, we all back?
And they've got me a referral to the physio, so I'll go back to physio. And if I do the
Yep.
exercises, which
We
I'm
need
trying
to
do,
crack on because we're aiming to be finished before lunchtime today.
go away.
Uh,
I've been away for years.
so,
It'd be nice to go to somewhere like the Canaries. I've never been there.
so we're on to agenda item 9, planning application. Oh, we are live streaming and everything, Amanda? We're all... Yep, we're all on, good, yeah. So planning application 230554, MFUL major, another Cranbrook application, pages 169 to 271. And Liam is going to present the report this time. So over to you, Liam.
Good morning, members. There we go. So this application seeks full planning permission for 81 residential dwellings at parcel TC3 and parcel TC8B within Cranbrook Town Centre. The application is before members as the recommendation to approve would be a departure from adopted policies in relation to planning obligations. This shows the location of the two parcels within Cranbrook. Both parcels are in the built-up area boundary and within the town centre of Cranbrook, whereby residential development is supported in principle. As previously mentioned, the site was identified for additional residential development as part of the MOU agreed between the council and the East Devon New Community Partners to bring forward the delivery of the town centre. So taking each parcel in turn, this is the site location for TC3, which is south of Tilhouse Road and to the west of Court Royal. And it's opposite the Morrisons, which is in this area here. This shows the site layout of this parcel, where there are 48 dwellings with an apartment block and rows of terraces fronting Tilhouse Road and Court Royal, with an internal street to the rear. 14 of the properties have been designed to have an adaptable ground floor, and access is from Sherford Way on the southern side. The pedestrian and cycle connections included within the layout to existing streets, and there's a parcel or an element of public open space in the centre of the site. In terms of materials, along Tilhouse Road and Court Royal, there is a mixture of red, white and blue brick with projecting brick surrounds, and then in parcel there's a mixture of red and buff brick with blue brick detailing and a mixture of grey and brown roof tiles. In terms of landscaping, there are trees proposed along the internal street and with public open space, and then soft landscaping within sort of front and side gardens. This shows the street scene for the parcel on Court Royal, where there are the dwellings and apartments are 3 stories in height, with the use of red, white and blue brick, gable fronts and projecting sort of brick window surrounds. And the intention was to try and create a strong continuous front along the western edge of the town centre opposite the Morrisons car park. This is the elevations of the apartment block, where this would be the front elevation here, which is facing Tilhouse Road, and then the rear elevation here, which is facing the car parking to the rear and terminating views within the internal street. Again, there's a use of sort of gable features, projecting and recessed elements, and balconies to provide some relief and visual interest. This shows the floor plans of the apartment. It's an L-shaped building with internal bin and bike stores, access from both the front and the rear. All dwellings are dual aspect, and all but 2 of the apartments include balconies or a terrace. However, there's a communal open space for those 2. This is an example of house type on Court Royal, which have been designed to have an adapted ground floor with a mixture of materials to create visual interest. These are some examples of other dwellings within the parcel, so use of projecting blue brick detailing and window surrounds in a mixture of buff and red brick and brown and grey roof tiles. In terms of this site, in terms of the sites and photographs of the site, this is the site looking south, looking from Tilhouse Road from the south across TC3, showing the existing boundary features along the boundary of the site. This is looking from Court Royal, looking northwest across the site, looking towards existing properties which are in phase 2 of Cranbrook. Again, this is looking from Court Royal, looking west towards the site and existing properties. And then there's in the middle here, you can't quite see on the photo, there's an existing access point in here which is being connected into. This is looking southwest from the site, looking towards Sherford Way. So the junction, the new access to the point would be along this boundary on the top here. And then moving on, there's parcel TC8B, which also forms part of the application. This is south of Badger Way that runs along this here, and is adjacent to the Cranberry Farm, which is the pub, and it's north of Stone Villa and Hillside, both along the London Road, both are Grade 2 listed buildings. This is the site layout for parcel TC8B, which includes 33 dwellings. There's access from Badger Way and a future pedestrian link to London Road in the southwest corner of the site. There are 2 areas of public open space with existing TPO protected trees, which are to be retained and form part of the POS. And then existing landscape between the site and Stone Villa, which is along this southern boundary, is to be retained as well. In terms of materials, there's a mixture of red and buff brick and grey and brown tiles with projecting blue brick detailing. There are red bricks and grey tiles along this southern boundary here to respect the setting of Stone Villa, which is Grade 2 listed. In terms of PRO's landscaping scheme, there's planting within front gardens and between car parking spaces, and the streets include trees on both sides, and then areas of POS will help soften the overall development. This shows the street scenes for Badger Way and an internal street, so it's 2.5 stories along Badger Way and part of the internal street, and then stepping down into 2 stories for the rest of the parcel. Again, use of red and buff brick, gable fronts, projecting bricks and front dormers along Badger Way. This is the house types for Badger Way, and the design of these dwellings reflect those at parcel TC7B, which has a resolution to grant. And some examples of internal house types within this parcel, again, use of sort of red and buff brick with projecting blue brick detailing, reflecting other applications within the town centre. In terms of site photos, so this is looking northwest from London Road, and this is the Grade 2 star listed Stone Villa, and development will be set behind this, so northwest of this dwelling. Oh, sorry, yeah, Grade 2 listed, sorry. This is also on London Road looking northwest, and this is existing Category A tree is to be retained as part of the development. This is looking from the Cranberry Farm pub car park, looking southeast towards the site, and the existing hedgerow between the car park and the site is to be retained as part of the car park. This is looking from Badger Way, looking south west. Existing trees and vegetation on the boundary are to be retained, and then you can see sort of existing development within Cranbrook further to the west of the site. This is looking south from Badger Way. This is the Category A tree that's to be retained, and existing vegetation here, which it bounds Stone Villa, is all to be retained. As previously stated, the need to deliver the town centre resulted in the signing of an MOU with the various Section 106 requirements and affordable housing on screen, and as mentioned in the previous agenda item. So planning permission must be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. In this case, the presumption in favour of sustainable development is triggered, and as well the MOU is a material consideration. The proposal would result in 81 residential dwellings in a sustainable location, would result in a higher density development of 55.5 dwellings per hectare, and the proposed dwellings would meet the nationally described space standard, The proposal has been assessed in relation to drainage and flood risk, highways, contamination, archaeology and sustainability, and is deemed to be acceptable. The development would fail to fully comply with a number of several adopted policies as set out in the report, and these policy conflicts weigh negatively in the overall planning balance. But the proposed development will result in a number of public benefits, including delivery of housing and affordable homes, as well as a number of requirements through the Section 106 to meet the requirements of the MOU. There's obviously clearly a need to balance development which is not fully in accordance with the adopted local plan and Cranbrook plan, but still delivers it as an acceptable form of development against the need for housing which within the district and material considerations. In this instance, having regard to all planning matters, given the need to bolster housing land supply, the sustainable location of the site, and wider benefits for existing and future residents of Cranbrook, it is in this case that officers consider that material considerations would on balance justify a recommendation for approval. And whilst there are conflicts with adopted policies, these do not result in a development whereby the harm was significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, and officers consider that the proposed development would overall align with the principles of sustainable development, and is therefore recommended that the appropriate assessment is adopted and the Section 106 is approved, subject to Section 106 legal agreements and conditions as seen on screen. Thank you, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Thea, do you need to add anything at this point? No, that's fine. Okay, any questions? Well, oh, hang on, we've got to hear from the Richard from Taylor Wimpey, Richard Harrison. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and yeah, I'm sorry we didn't include you in the list of speakers somehow.
I think that was our fault, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Dear members, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about our full application for 81 homes on parcel 3 and 8B within the Cranbrook Town Centre today. As members know, the process for delivering a viable development within the town centre at Cranbrook started in 2018. The application before you has the exact same policy position as the Persimmon application and the Hallam Land application on TC7B, where members have already resolved to grant consent, so I won't talk to you today about planning policy. This particular application was submitted in 2023 by Taylor Wimpey, and it's been through several design changes requested and crafted by East Devon's officers. The scheme before you today is the culmination of these discussions. It has delivered a design with a distinct character that reflects the more urban town centre and is seen as acceptable by East Devon's officers in compliance with policy CB22. There's a feature apartment building to complement the town centre, a strong sense of place from homes fronting Court Royal and around Badger Way, with distinct and unique homes that reflect the design aspirations for these parcels. The design responds to the listed building near TC8B, as well as the need to provide pedestrian links onto London Road. This application provides homes that are easily adaptable for future commercial uses, if occupiers wish, protection for 2 TPO trees within TC8B, density above 55 DPH as per policy and the town centre location, ecological enhancements, PV panels to all homes, triple glazing to all homes, affordable housing in accordance with the MOU as signed by East Devon District Council, and now water butts to all homes with gardens and a downpipe. After 2.5 years of negotiation, compromise and design work, officers are supportive of our scheme and really keen to see these important parcels be delivered at Cranbrook. Not only will they generate more activity in the town centre and places for people to live, but they also contribute funding towards education facilities and sustainable travel. Approval of this scheme will allow us to continue working towards delivering viable uses at Cranbrook for the benefit of all. Any alternative will significantly increase delays, put in jeopardy all the work that has taken place over many years. I hope members agree with the officers and grant approval today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before you... Oh, yeah. Actually, before you go, Richard, I just wanted to ask, you mentioned something about the homes being adaptable to commercial uses.
On TC3, the ones fronting Court Royal, they've
Right, so the vision there is that potentially you could have small shops
correct.
opening up there.
So as per policy provision and discussed with officers, they're easily adaptable so that should any future occupier want to adapt them for commercial uses, they're able to have a separation so that it's very clear there's a commercial space and there's a residential area to the rear and then above the shop.
Okay, thank you. So obviously they'd have to apply for change of use, presumably, but yeah, that sounds interesting. Thank you. I'm always fascinated by Berlin, which I visit quite a lot, and there's like a corner shop on nearly every corner, and a Späti usually, because they open till late. So I'm always interested in that sort of residential and commercial mixed use kind of developments. Okay, questions? Councillor Faithful, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few here. Why are we only having single entrance, bearing in mind that as a local council, we deal with waste and recycling, and we have a close in Ottery where they've had to dig up the sewer, and now a whole load of residents are having to take their waste and recycling today out to the end of the close, and it's quite a long close. And surely if they could have two entrances in these both plots, it would make life a lot easier for the residents and our recycling teams. That's one. Which of the homes are convertible? I don't know how. Do you want to do them one at a time, or I can chuck the whole lot at you if you want. What is the area without the ground floors? That's of the convertible units. And can ground floor be separated from first and second floors? And have we any idea how much open space Cranbrook has in the event of a flood? Because most of the open space that they've been given is floodplain, so heavy rain, they haven't got anything. Well, they've got very little anyway. I think that's enough for starters.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, when you say convertible, you mean convertible to commercial uses, not convertible for disabled access or something like that, which has also been an issue with some of them. Okay. I'll pass that over to Liam.
Of course. I'll start with the waste and recycling. So the applications have been reviewed by the District Council waste and recycling team, and there's no objections or no comments on them. The roads, the internal roads themselves will be designed to an adoptable standard, so can be offered for adoption with Devon County Council, and therefore our waste and recycling lorries will be able to go in and turn around and come back out, and then collect waste receptacles from the front or rear of the relevant properties.
Just looking at the south one, the Badger, it does seem a bit silly that it goes all the way around in a loop and comes right up against the curb, the other side, the pavement, the other side, and yet they can't drive across it, which I thought would be easier for our teams to just go in one end and out the other. But it's, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, the road does loop around in that parcel, you know, with a pedestrian access on Badger Way. But I'd say that the internal road in the middle enables sort of vehicles to loop back round to the exit, entrance and exit of the point. But I suppose in terms of the layout, there's a balance between, you know, amount of highway land and, you know, land for other points, and that would have needed a separate bell mouth and into that to create a second junction, which wasn't deemed to be necessary. And then moving on apart from in relation to convertible homes, if I just go back to the layout, well, I'll point them out first. So along Court Royal, so those which are highlighted in green, I don't know how well you can see, are the, there's 14 of them in green, which are the house type that can be converted, the ground floor can be converted, and through discussions with the applicant, if I go to the floor plans, we looked at ways in which this could be done. So in essence, the staircase was moved to the rear of the dwelling so that the front door and this sort of space at the front could be sectioned off in sort of a number of different places to give a small commercial area at the front and still have a downstairs sort of toilet for that commercial use. And then residents of the dwelling then had the kitchen at ground floor so that they could have overlook the garden and use the rear door as in the new front door. And then you then had the lounge and bedrooms upstairs that aren't affected by the change. There are a number of ways in which they can be converted, but we reached a point where we could see evidence that this dwelling type could be converted, which was enough, to meet the policy requirement. And then the final point was in relation. Actually, the green one. And then your last point was in relation to open space in the event of a flood. So these parcels themselves are not in the flood zone. So the open space within these parcels are not in the flood zone. I'm aware that sort of most of the country park is in the flood zone, but I don't believe that that would be a flood evacuation route or safe flood evacuation route. And there would be no objection from the EA in terms of the change.
It's just the fact that when the floodplain is flooded, they haven't got this great large number of open space. Most of the reason it's there is because they can't build on it anyway. So it's not like it's got parkland that you can use all the time. There's very little of that. It's the main bulk of it is floodplain, that's all.
Well, I think that's just an issue, isn't it? But I'm sure there's quite a lot of parks that don't become quite so convenient after heavy rainfall or in the event of flooding. And I think that's just something people could adapt to. Okay. Any further questions? No? Let me down, Ian. Okay.
Can I just, as a little one, is there a possibility of adding pedestrian access from the Badger one out onto to the east side, Cranford Lane? Because the pedestrian access that's being given takes you out onto the roundabout. There's no pedestrian access between that roundabout and the bus stop for the 44 and the 44A. So, I mean, I've walked that bit and it's pretty horrible. You can traipse through the middle of Rockbeer Motors forecourt, but you can't really legally claim that to be a pedestrian access. Looking at the park, is there a way of putting a pedestrian access through the open space onto that lane on the right-hand side?
There have been numerous debates about whether this is possible or not. You've got 2 TPO protected trees with their root protection areas pretty much stemming from that dwelling all the way up to this dwelling. And so therefore, the possibility of that would be, going through those root protection areas. So it wasn't deemed as necessary to do that. And the walk from the parcel around and then down into Cranford Lane was, not that long, as well as we did have been able to secure a footpath down to the London Road here, with Devon County Council going to fill in the missing link to actually connect it to the footpath, to the existing footpath. Again, that goes round a TPO protected tree. And so therefore there are no objection from Devon County Highways in terms of pedestrian and cycling sort of connections within the parcel into wider areas. But for those reasons, we didn't think it was necessary to secure a link to Cranford Lane.
Going back to the piece of open space, you look on Google Street Scene and you can see there's hardly any bank there at all at the very bottom end. Would it take too much to put almost like a footbridge over the top of the bank to protect the trees? Something like that, because that's where most of the tree roots are going to be, is in the...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we just didn't think that was necessary to put in that connection as part of this, part of the sort of application. But there's nothing to say something that might come in the future. But yeah, they are TPO protected trees, which obviously need then care about their roots and their protection and construction within their root protection areas.
Okay. So, any further questions? Okay, we'll move into debate then. Councillor Bloxham.
Thank you. A similar application to the two we heard earlier, to the one we heard in July. I can only reiterate and emphasise that the delivery of the town centre residential development must trigger the unlocking of the essential facilities for the non-residential. Same points I raised earlier about it talks about further details of adoption will be secured by condition regarding the public open space. It would have been better to have had that up front. So we do still need to make sure that's resolved. But on that basis, if you're ready, I'm happy to propose approval as per the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, very happy to second Councillor Bloxham. This is, as you said, we passed one earlier, we passed one back along. It's exactly the same. I hear Councillor Faithfull's thing about the footpath, but looking at it, it's about 50 metres up and 50 metres back, so hopefully we're helping with people's fitness to catch the bus or to get onto the access. Again, we are straying from the Cranbrook plan, but there is reasons that deem this, not just the housing, it is for the good of the town as a whole that this goes through. So I, again, will be happy to second it.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this one? No, I don't think I have a lot to add. I think we've heard from the Cranbrook councillor, that's always important. Okay, in that case.
Got another one with these appropriate assessment.
Yes.
And also additional condition about water conservation.
Yep. There's an additional condition, Damien, about water conservation and use of water butts, which I think has been picked up. Yes, we caught him on camera, and so I think we'll make sure they honour that one. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So again, if we take it as two separate votes, first of all, can we have a vote to adopt the appropriate assessment as set out in Appendix 1? All those in favour, please. That's unanimous, Chair. And then secondly, to approve the application subject to the Section 106 agreement and the conditions with the additional condition regarding the water butts, final wording delegated to the development manager. And again, all those in favour, please. And again, it's unanimous, Chair. Goodness me, everybody's very agreeable today.
Yes. Okay, so we can move on then to agenda item 10. Thank you to Richard and Joshua for coming and giving your view as well. Okay, and so this is planning up. Oh, Emerald's here. Wonderful. Planning application 250081 FUL. This is Newton, Poppleford and Hertford, pages 272 to 279 on your agenda pack. And Emerald Maguire Phoebe, is it? will present the report. Over to you.
Good morning. It is still morning, yes. Good morning, members. This application is for a single-storey side extension at 1 School Lane. It's being brought before you today because there was an objection and the property is owned by the council.
Yeah, come up here.
Just bring it a little bit closer, Emma. They're quite...
Apologies. Is that
They're iffy, those mics.
a bit better?
Dive into it.
Yes, so the application is before you today because the property is owned by East Devon District Council and there was objections received during the notification period. So we have the application site here on School Lane, and then the school is immediately south to the site. It's an end of terrace. There's also a small car park adjacent, accessed via this lane. And then just a bit more context. So yes, the primary school viewable here. This is the single-storey side extension. Originally, it was proposed as a flat roof extension, received objections from the Town Council and the ward member, and then amended designs were proposed, adding the hip in for the roof. You can see it is to accommodate wheelchair accessible bedroom and shower room downstairs with entrance ramps as well to allow for that access. Currently there's no bedrooms in the downstairs area, so no accessibility for the occupants that do require the wheelchair access. There's also a parking space proposed at the front of the dwelling. There's currently no parking provided in front of the dwelling. You can see, so here is the existing house. This chimney is also proposed to be removed. We have the boundary line here, and then the school property starts over this edge. There's car parking and various boundary treatments already present in the street. That's viewing up to the school this end, lane access to the car park. And then this is the view that would predominantly be seeing the single-storey extension from. There are a number of properties that have side extensions in the area. This is just up the road, slightly past the school. So we have flat roof single story and a hipped roof single story on these two properties. So the extension is a little wider than is normally encouraged under our householder design guide and through the local plan. So it is a little out of proportion with the main house. We have discussed this with the agent, and it is the minimum width in order to accommodate the wheelchair accessibility required under building control and in accordance with discussions with the occupational therapist as well. It obviously provides improved accessibility for the tenant with a disability. There's no significant impacts projected for neighbours' amenity, and it results in additional EDDC housing unit capable of appropriately accommodating a person with a disability. As you will have read in the report, some of the objections received noted maintaining a right of way that is benefited across the land, so a 1 metre wide access by foot will be retained between the boundary and the proposed extension to allow that access to be maintained for the properties. And in conclusion, it's recommended for approval with conditions to be built in accordance with the plans, surface water runoff via soakaways, hard standing to be SUDS compliant, and for landscaping details to ensure that it is in keeping with the street scene as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, we'll have, we've got no speakers, have we? So we will invite questions. Do we have any questions? No? Okay, debate? Or simultaneously. I'll go for Councillor Smith first.
I did just want to comment and just say our statutory partners in the NHS, their main aim is to try and keep people at home for as long as possible, and where we can have a say in that in the planning committee and trying to encourage adaptations of homes in order to keep people at home rather than needing to be in medical facilities or adapted care units. It's always better to have that. So yeah, I'm fully in favour of approving this in line with officer recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Barlow?
Yeah, happy to second, Chair. Again, totally agree with Councillor Smith. I also think that the hipped roof, although I'm sure it costs a little bit more, is a vast improvement on the plans that were superseded. And thanks to the local ward member for moaning like it, so we had to redo it. So I know there's an extra cost on it, but again, you don't want to ruin something just because of a few quid.
No, and I think looking at the photograph that Emerald showed us of the flat-roofed extension and the pitched roof extension, I can kind of see why Newton Poppleford were keen to bring in that stipulation, because you could see the flat-roofed extension did look a little out of keeping somehow. I think if they're on the back, sometimes it's not so visible, but I think as part of the street scene, it is quite important to have pitched roofs there. So
yeah, and if you looked at the application, you can see the old plans, and they're a vast improvement. So yeah, well done.
Yep. We are going to lose some of that bank, aren't we? That is in front of the house. That obviously has been considered, and we consider that it's acceptable. I mean, it's obviously not high ecological value.
That's correct. So a portion of the bank will be being removed to allow for the access by vehicle to the site. It was also referred to Highways, who did not provide any comment or concern with respect to that. So, and hence, again, the landscaping plan recommended as a condition to ensure that that's done sympathetically.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we have a proposer and a seconder. Does anybody else wish to speak on this one? Nope. Okay, we can go to a vote, Damien. In that case, this one's fairly straightforward. The recommendation is approval with conditions, as laid out in the report. So all those in favour? Oh, yes. Councillor Hughes has come on board. Thank you very much. We're unanimous again, so no against, no abstentions. Okay, that brings us on to our final item today then, which is agenda item 11. This is a planning application for Sidmouth Town, and it's 250810 FUL. And Wendy Ormsby is going to present the report on this one.
So this application is at Church Cottage, Church Lane, Sidmouth, and it's for the retention of fencing and proposed erection of a picket fence on a Grade 2 listed building. And the reason this has come to committee is because the applicant is a councillor. There have been no objections to the application itself. So this is showing you the application site. You probably remember this site was at committee a couple of committees ago with some retrospective listed building works. So this shows the site, sited next to the church. And effectively, the green shows the close board fencing to be retained, the retrospective aspect of the development. And then it's proposed to add a small run of low picket fencing within the site, but visible from outside. And this is the fence that is to be retained. So this is views from the churchyard. So it immediately adjoins the churchyard, but there was previously a similar height close boarded fence in situ, which just fell over. So it's not changing anything in terms of what's previously been on the site. And it is proposed to place a picket fence similar to this along the top of this wall internally, as I said, but visible from outside the site. And it's just a low 0.6 metre picket, 1 metre picket fence. So no adverse impacts arising from the development, either with regard to amenity or on the setting of the listed building or the listed church, which it adjoins, and this is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. So questions? Okay, no questions. Is there a question, Ian? No. So we're moving into debate. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. As before, when we had this, I think the only reason this is before us is because Councillor Goodman is a councillor. It's not his house. He is merely a church warden, and yeah, again, I think this would have been passed had it not been that. I think we should send the church a thing saying, please put another warden in charge of it. However, forgetting that, I see no reason for this. I know the site very well, and certainly I will be happy to recommend as per officer recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Bailey has seconded that one, so all in favour? Wow, unanimous again. That has got to be an all-time record. Don't get used to it, David. I'm quite sure we can find some. Mrs. Ormsby will have some nice controversial ones stored up for us, you know. Yeah. Oh,
Good to know.
yeah. You shouldn't have let that slip. I thought you were coming back for planning in January. Oh, right,
Yeah, you
right.
did that last time, said you were going to be in Thailand and then you turned up.
Yeah, flew back specially, yeah. Okay, that brings our meeting to an end. So thank you all for attending, and enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the sunshine.